Hey guys, so today I wanted to discuss a bit of my experience again, and I'm sorry this camera has low quality, but I lost most of my things again, so uh, bear with me. Um, I think this video is very important because there is a lot of prejudice in regards to autism, but at the same time, they treat you probably worse than if you were diagnosed as autistic when you're high masking autistic. Um, so, reference, I had a complicated and very hard childhood. Um, my father beat me since I was 3 years old, 3 years old. Um, I was bullied at school. Um, I had a good relationship with several of my teachers and a few of my colleagues, but the vast majority of people really abused me and treated me badly. And so I remember every kid would treat me, almost every kid would beat me, they would provoke me, and I had meltdowns for sure. Uh, I remember um, I would bite as a defense mechanism, and people would go against me. Like most times, I would only be aggressive after people were aggressive to me. I don't remember most of the meltdowns. Uh, I remember one epic meltdown. Kids were um, being aggressive to me, beating me, and I accidentally hurt one of the few I had, and she never talked to me again. Um, it hurt because the thing is, I had two special friends that I really liked a lot, and liked, like, really, really liked. It's not like anything romantic or anything, but it's just uh, such a strong friendship to me. I know they probably didn't feel the same amount of friendship, but so in one of those meltdowns, I hurt one of my friends because I was kicking and screaming, and I don't really remember. I just remember the aftermath. I know some kid hurt me. Um, I know a lot of kids starting hurting me, and I had problems. I wet myself, so it was really, really bad because I was really bullied because of that. And to be honest, I don't know if I always wet myself or if I started wetting myself after uh, my neighbor's teenage son sexually abused me. But the fact that I had lack of bladder control, I think probably I always had a lack of bladder control, not sure, um, always caused me problems in school. So around then, I also now I know, but back then I was highly intelligent, and everyone always told me I was super intelligent. I had a hard time finishing my homework and stuff like that. I was an avid reader but couldn't write. Well, I could write, but it took me long to write, and uh, I could never finish my homework and my assignments. And through even in university, I had a hard time finishing my assignments. Now I know I have ADHD. Back then, I didn't know why I couldn't finish stuff. I always thought it was because I was perfectionist and wanted to do everything right. But now I know it was also due to ADHD. So there were several traits that I had. So they me to a referral. I think I was about 6, 7 years old, and I was diagnosed with Asperger's back then. And I know one of the important reasons why I wasn't diagnosed with autism back then was because there were certain traits that I didn't share with the diagnosis of autism. I was a savant, something like that. I learned to talk early. I learned to read really early. And so back then, I was still able to get an Asperger's diagnosis. And sadly, my parents walked away because they didn't want a defective daughter. Uh, but I mean, it's not because you don't get a label that you're less autistic and that anything's gonna change and you cannot beat the autistic out of your daughter no matter how much you try. Just like you can't beat the left handedness out of your daughter no matter how much you try. Um, Fast forward 7, 8 years in my teens, I was always insisting that I had autism. I said Asperger's back then, but I know it was on the spectrum of autism. But because I was diagnosed with Asperger's, that's what I told the doctors. Um, I was gaslit so much by friends, family, professors, teachers. Everyone insisted that I didn't fit the criteria for diagnosis, and at the same time, every single criticism that I endured was things that were autistic, but even I didn't know those were autistic traits. The criticisms they had about me. Some I did, but the vast majority of criticism that I now that I've been more in touch with the autistic community and talking with my psychiatrist, there's a lot of traits that back then I didn't know were autistic traits that now, oh, that makes sense. Um, and so it's rather frustrating. Um, I All psychologists and psychiatrists said, "Oh, you're normal. You're probably just traumatized." Athena, fofinha. Sorry, my kitty just jumped and almost fell out of the couch. But she's fine. She held on and she's fine. You're probably going to see her now. She's passing close to me. Um so the fact is, I started talking. My baby milestones were really, really. You can see her, kitty butt. Um, I started talking earlier than normal, and one of the stereotypes of autism is that there is a delay in speaking, which is not always true. In fact, some autistic people are known to start talking earlier than average, which is what happened to me. Um, I was also really smart, and I started reading at 3 years old, although I only started reading full books at 4 years old. So essentially, I started reading on by myself. I didn't have any help. I learned the alphabet and I started joining letters, and my parents thought it was hilarious. So my mom started buying me tiny books, and at school they thought it was hilarious, so they started always lending me books. So I started reading really, really early. I also started writing earlier, but I couldn't write properly. I mean, I think it has to do with the fact that I was left handed, so I was really slow, and sometimes I wrote backwards. Um, and I struggled with writing most of my life, not because I couldn't write, but my penmanship isn't the best, and it takes me. I was really slow writing, so um, I didn't like writing that much. It was a nightmare, but it was that's one of the things my teacher said, that normally kids who can write better than they can read, but I could read better than I could write. But I never made it. I rarely made any spelling mistakes. I was really, really good at spelling. It was just that my calligraphy was really, really ugly. And um, yeah, it was mostly about my calligraphy and how slow I wrote. So that was the main issue. But I started reading really, really early. And a lot of in my early diagnosis that didn't matter because I was more visibly autistic, so I got the diagnosis back then as a child. But uh, about when I was 10, 12 years old, instead of having meltdowns, I started having shutdowns. I started, I was, I started forcing myself to talk more and be more social. Um, so I was still bullied. I was still abused by my parents. Well, mostly my dad. But um, I think I was masking more, and I was not showing as autistic as I used to. Um, and one of the things that whenever I tried to get a diagnosis, oh, you started to talk before you were 3 years old? No, you can't be autistic. Oh, you started to read early on? You can't be autistic. And now I learned that actually hyperlexia, which is that when a child starts reading earlier than they normally would, is also an autistic trait, which is rather fascinating because all my life they use that as an exclusion criteria for getting a diagnosis, when in fact it could actually be an autistic trait. There are other conditions that can lead you to learn to read earlier than the average your average age group, uh, but it has a high correlation with autism. And it's rather interesting that a lot of the traits, autistic traits that I have, uh, were used to dismiss my autistic autism diagnosis. And now, when I'm reading about it, because um, now I need to learn about myself, I need to learn how to unmask, I need to learn because I've been going through autistic burnout at least since 2010. I had outs, but somehow recovered. But from from what I gather, at least from 2010, I've been going through autistic burnout. So now I have to discover my triggers. I have to relearn what autistic traits, the things that I have suppressed, the things that my family tries to me to suppress, and stop masking as much and stop suppressing as much to reduce the burnout. It's not an easy thing. Uh, I also must. This is what my psychiatrist said. I need to learn my stims, my triggers, and it's really hard because when you are burnt out, anything could be a trigger, and you can be either oversensitive to things or desensitized. So it's really hard to know yourself. Um, so what I've been focusing on is working through the criticism I've received through the years. Um, for instance, what gestures, what behavior and tics, stuff like that my family and surrounding people uh, tried to make me suppress. And so I've been analyzing my behaviors and past behaviors heavily. And now, reading the books that my psychiatrist told me to read, and uh, reading the burnout materials, I'm realizing that a lot of the the behaviors I had and the things people criticized me for were autistic traits. And it's so sad that at the same time they were trying to suppress my autistic traits and criticizing me for them, they were gaslighting me and saying that those very traits made it so that I couldn't be autistic, when in fact those traits that they criticized me for were actually autistic traits and could have helped me in getting a diagnosis. That's really frustrating, particularly the discrimination on the fact that I'm too smart to be autistic, that I'm too articulate to be autistic, that I'm too social, even though I one of the biggest criticisms I get is that I'm not social, that I hate talking on the phone, and my family, everyone says that I am just throwing a tantrum or something. I don't know. I just hate talking on the phone, and I avoid the phone like the plague. Um, I don't know why, but I do. I barely, I isolate myself a lot, and all the things that I do that they criticize, they think it's because of either personality or depression, I think it's my brother. It's hilarious because I keep telling him, um, and he just says, "Oh no, you're not autistic. You just don't do things because you have a computer and your phone, and you get distracted with the internet. If you didn't have the internet, you wouldn't do those things, or you would socialize more, or because you are too social in certain circumstances, when in fact, even when I didn't have uh, electronic devices, I was acting the same. um, when I came out of the hospital, it's something he talks frequently. He says that I was, because back then I didn't have a computer. Uh, they took everything I owned. I had my cell phone, just the only thing that survived back then. But of course, on in the hostel, I barely got internet access, so I actually had more internet close to my brother. So it was also one of the reasons why I was not, I didn't spend much time in the room. But he said, "Oh, you came to talk to me," and my work colleagues, he has a taxi. The reason I went talking to him was basically just figure out someone who is autistic. They just took everything you owned. You cannot go back to your place. I wasn't even allowed to be with my cat back then. She almost died because of social services. They took everything I owned, everything my family owned. Um, my house is empty, and I can't go back to my house now because of inheritance and stuff like that, fights between family. So just figure an autistic girl who is burnout. I was taking care of my grandmother. She passed away. My uncle, they took them from my house during COVID. Then I never saw them again. But I still have my mom who has early onset Alzheimer, and nobody helped me care for her. The house was a mess, I know. But the mess was worsened because the house was clean at first, but when social services started coming every week harassing me and my mom tried to kill herself a few times. Um, we started having issues cleaning the house. And I tried them to hospitalize my mom multiple times because she wasn't letting me take care of her. She didn't shower. She was in really bad situation. And every time I called an ambulance, they sent her back home because she wouldn't shower there. And they even yelled at me for buying a couch so my mom wouldn't have to sleep in a hole because her bed got damaged. And social services always refused to help me. They let her pester. They didn't help me care for my mom. Whenever I tried to help her, she would accuse me of beating her and call the police on me. I couldn't do anything. And then when she finally couldn't move, I called the ambulance for the last time. They accused me of neglecting her, even though I sent her to the hospital over 20 times and they didn't do anything. Um, about cleaning, I wanted to clean, but my mom was really, really hard to take care of. She didn't let me take care of. I was burned out. Social services, even. yelled at me for doing the basic minimum to help her. And when they took her, they also hospitalized me against my will. And I kept telling them, I'm healthy and I'm just autistic and I need certain supports. I don't need to be hospitalized. I asked for a lawyer. They didn't let me get a lawyer. I asked them to contact um, NGOs that help autistic people. I was denied that support. I got hospitalized for 2 months. Um, and it wasn't the first time I was hospitalized, to be honest. But they would abuse me and say I was crazy, that I was bipolar, I was schizophrenic. They would say I should be ashamed of being disgusting, of being fat, of being so many things. And I started stimming more. I started being more visibly autistic because I was too nervous and I couldn't control a lot of my autistic traits. And I'm sorry, it's just too traumatic. And even then, they rejected the autism diagnosis. Uh, I kept asking for a lawyer. They rejected it, and it's really bad because at the same time they say you're too smart to be autistic, but for I don't know, since my grandfather died, I was taking care of my grandmother. I couldn't get a job because they thought I wasn't mentally well enough to work, that I wasn't good enough to take another degree. They, it's like at the same time they tell you you're not good enough to do those things, and they point out a lot of your autistic traits. And at the same time, they say you're not autistic because you're too smart, you're too articulate. And it's like they contradict themselves. At the same time, they're saying you're too dumb, and they're saying you're too smart. And it's like it's so confusing, so confusing. Um, I'm sorry, it's a lot. It's a lot to process. I don't really know what. I mean, I'm 37 years old, almost 38, and my life was stolen from me. My life was stolen. I had to run away to find a job because they didn't let me work. I had to run away. Um, the worst part is okay, I can't work. If I'm not good enough to work, then I I I could get a retirement for disability or something if you're not letting me work, but no, they didn't. Uh, they just tried to diagnose me with all those mental illnesses that I didn't have, that I didn't fit the diagnostic criteria for. Um, I had one of the best psychiatrists in University of Coimbra. He said I was healthy, although he also had prejudice against autism, and he said that maybe I was misdiagnosed as a child. It was a bit of patronizing, but I mean, he wasn't a bad person. They forced me to change psychiatrists 4 times. They hospitalized me twice. They tried multiple times, but only institutionalized me twice. They failed to institutionalize me uh, the other times they wanted to institutionalize me. Um, One time, one of the psychiatrists they procured me, uh, uh, the health delegate, which is a health authority, uh, followed me to the psychiatrist and insisted that she needed to prescribe me meds because I was crazy and I needed meds. And my psychiatrist, like, okay, she back then I admire her because she actually treated me with dignity and she risked her job to protect me. She said that I was healthy and she couldn't in good conscience, and she evoked something, I don't know, some medical some medical oath thing. She couldn't in good conscience prescribe me medication that I didn't need. um, she was threatened, and she said, okay, I can't prescribe her medication, but I could put her in therapy. She was heavily threatened, and um, when the health delegates something, it's I don't know the name in English. The health authorities left her room. She told me, you should sue her. She's violating her rights. You have right to privacy, and she is going against your rights. You don't have any mental illness. I am not prescribing you medication that you don't need. Um, to Then they came back into the room, and I was let go without medication. But then, when I was institutionalized against my will, first my psychiatrist, I was overseen by other psychiatrists, and they were really horrible. But after I left the hospital, my psychiatrist didn't treat me as she used to. She she talked to me in very hurtful ways. I was already medicated by other psychiatrists, so she didn't touch on the medication. But I don't know what they wrote on my file. Uh, she she started being mean to me. Um, so yeah, but the worst part is when I was institutionalized, I went through really, really bad moments. When I get anxiety, I have restless leg syndrome. I don't know if it's because of autism or ADHD, but it's one of my most pronounced stems, one of the few that I cannot stop. And I was at the hospital first and foremost. Every day I asked them to let me go because I had a cybersecurity degree to finish. I was unable to finish because they hospitalized me. I really, it's one of the biggest, the most painful things is when I finally got the thing that I wanted the most for years. I wanted a cybersecurity degree, and I the school I was going to didn't have that course, and For years, because I started with a computer networks course, and for years I went there insisting, you should open this course. And when it finally opened, I was so happy, and I was almost done. And they institutionalized me, and I couldn't finish. And uh, in order to start again, I need to be unemployed. And if I'm unemployed, I'm at the ends of social services again, and I'll go through that abuse again. So, uh, and I don't want to go through that abuse again because uh, it's a full time course, and you have to sign a document that you're not working to be able to take that course. And I'd have to be half a year because I finished the first 2 semesters, um, without a job to be able to finish it. And then I only have the internship to do, and a few modules that I couldn't finish because I was institutionalized. So I can't finish because if to be able to finish, I need to be unemployed. I need to give up my job, and giving up my job is giving up my autonomy. And I don't want to risk going back to the hospital and being dependent on people who don't respect autistic people and who to suppress you and treat you as you are a second class citizen. That hospital is, I already had trauma from being hospitalized as a child. I was hospitalized because my parents uh, had a bad relationship. My father was abusive to my mom and me, not my brother. My brother was always the everything for my father. He was pampered, it was everything. But me and my mom, we suffered extreme domestic violence. So I was 6 months in an hospital, mostly by myself, and it was very traumatic. And the I already had trauma, uh, felt abandoned, and so it was really hard. The two times I was institutionalized against my will as an adult were really painful. Not only because it reminded me of being hospitalized as a child, but because they were really abusive towards me. They wanted to diagnose me with all sorts of mental illnesses, and I didn't fit the diagnostic criteria. But they never even entertained the idea of giving me an autism diagnosis. Um, they prescribed me medication that was not good to me. Um, I wasn't eating, and when I told them that the medication suppressed my appetite and they wanted to force me to eat, but at the same time, I wasn't eating because the medication suppressed my appetite. I was throwing up. I was accused of being bulimic, anoretic. Um, they doubled the medication. They were really angry at me because I was stimming heavily, uh, more so than usual. And so me stimming a lot made them think that I was mentally unsound because I was stimming. I was stimming, 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 stimming. And normally I mask and I barely stim. I think the only stim I had left was the restless leg syndrome, but when I was institutionalized, I started stimming like never before, or at least like I probably hadn't stimmed in years. And so they doubled my drugs. And the thing is, the drugs don't do anything. They make me more tired, but uh, I couldn't sleep. I spent most of the nights awake. They had a SOS medication that was supposed to make me doze off. I wouldn't sleep even with the sleeping medication. I was on alprazolam, which is I think Prozac, whatever, because they always give me that drug. They gave me peridone, which does nothing for me. They gave me some other drug I don't know the name, doesn't do anything for me. And they gave me the drug that really uh, does not work for me and it's really harmful to me, which is fluoxetine. Fluoxetine causes me to be aggressive and it completely suppresses my appetite and makes me throw up. And it's the drug that they insisted on giving me, even though I told them that I couldn't take it. I think they were trying to cause me to have a psychotic episode. Um, I don't know because I specifically told them that it caused me to be aggressive. I couldn't take it, and instead they increased the dosage, and they were forcing me to eat, even though I couldn't eat because of the fluoxetine. I already have a low appetite, even though it doesn't look like it because I'm extremely overweight. And back then I wasn't as overweight, but since I was institutionalized, I haven't been able to lose the weight I gained. Um, when I was there, I was at a healthy weight. I was 67 kilos. It's still overweight, but not too much. And with the medication, uh, I think really ruined my metabolism because when I went to my brother's house, I stopped the medication because I couldn't eat. Uh, I was stimming too much, so I had to stop the medication and pretend I was taking it because it was really causing me harm. And I know you shouldn't stop medication overnight, but I did. I had some withdrawal for 2 days, then I was fine. The thing is, um, now I have issues with weight again because of that medication. And the thing is, they were yelling at me for stimming heavily, but the medication increased my stimming. I don't know if it was the physical addiction to fluoxetine or whatever. I was stimming more. Also, the environment wasn't good. I typically stim only with one leg, but my entire body was I was shaking my entire body. I spent the entire day pacing in that corridor from one end to the other. I wouldn't stop all day. I had blisters on my feet, but I was so claustrophobic there. I didn't feel well, and I was forced to wear a mask 24/7. And sometimes you had the same mask for 3 days. I gained uh, I got lung infection and bronchial pneumonia again because of it. Uh, it was during the COVID lockdown. I don't know. It's just really bad because they want to diagnose you with everything, but they deny you the proper cure for autism. And it's really sad because a lot of the traits that are actually autistic traits, they consider they are exclusionary to an autistic diagnosis. And I don't know, it's just, I know I go out of topic a lot in this video. There's just so much I am not even telling in this video about my experience there. Um, they were giving opioids to former drug addicts that were clean and shouldn't be taking opioids. So there was a lot of wrong in that hospital, and they tried to keep me there longer, but they couldn't keep me there longer. Uh, they actually told me that if I didn't start eating and stopped stimming, that I would stay there longer. But in the end, the hospital was full and they needed beds for people who actually have mental illnesses. And I ended up to being freed because even though they wanted to keep me there were people who have actual mental illnesses that needed those beds, and I was freed. Finally, they started to take me back a few times, but I managed to escape, and they tried to institutionalize me recently, but thank God I have an autism diagnosis finally, and my psychiatrist, Dr. Pedro, is protecting me. Um, at least finally now, I have a paper that says that unless I have a psychotic episode and that I'm in an altered state of mind, they can't institutionalize me against my will. Um, that is really bad because there's a lot of prejudice on what autism is and what autistic traits are. And at the same time, they are denying and gaslighting about your struggles as an autistic person, uh, while at the same time saying you should be ashamed of X, Y, Z, and pointing out your autistic traits. And the thing is, even the autistic burnout, who that could have been one of the ways they diagnosed me with autism, they tried to use it to considering clinically insane and my organization issues that were small when I started interacting with social services and increased as they and the thing is I kept telling them I can clean things, and the thing is with hoarding issues, if you are throwing away my things, and it wasn't hoarding, I was disorganized, but the things they told me to do escalated my issues. When social service came to my house, they wanted to see what me and my mom were disposing of. They said, no, don't throw away the trash, keep it by the door. We want to see everything you're eating, we want to see everything you're disposing of. Um, and we kept throwing away the trash, but they started yelling at us for doing so because they wanted to go through it, and I don't know why. And so, what started as a small clutter, books and collectibles in boxes, um, became hoarding, a bit of hoarding, and The thing is, trauma causes you to get worse, and when they take away your things, you get more disorganized. And I told him, I can clean this, I can work this, I know I can, I've done it before, but I needed an autism diagnosis, and I back then I didn't say ADHD because I thought that it was autistic traits, although I knew I had ADHD tendencies. I thought it was part of the autism and not a separate diagnosis. But yeah, my psychiatrist says it's because of the ADHD and the burnout. And so, if someone is already burnout and you're going to cause more stress, she's only going to get more burnout, the CPTSD. It's only going to make me messier and messier and messier. And the saddest thing is, I knew what I had to do to solve my problems. I told them, need an autism diagnosis, and I need appropriate therapy for someone on the spectrum, because there are certain things that you do with neurotypicals that you cannot do with autistic people. And I have PDA, so it's even harder to deal with me because I have PDA. So when you're bossing an autistic person around and when you're invalidating her, when you're being ableist, when you are insulting them, and they said really ins- call me really bad names, that I was evil, that I was well, all sorts of things, something a professional shouldn't call anyone. um so yeah, it's really hurtful. I won't get back the 38 years that were stolen from me. But the thing is, imagine being autistic, going through burnout for years, and the more people harass you, the more burnout you have. And the more burnout you have, the less organized you are, the less social social you are, the less it worsens your executive functioning. But at the same time that your executive functioning is at its all-time lowest and getting worse, they are making more sense and treating you in ways that make your burnout even worse. So, yeah, and I'm sorry for the rant. It's just I'm still processing it. I know I deleted a lot of videos in the past when I was going through some of the most horrific moments of my burnout. Um, but now I'm trying to recover on my own, which is not easy because I recently went through another situation with my landlord and social services. And the thing is, I keep telling and I kept begging for an autism diagnosis, and they kept rejecting me. And the thing is, people judge you for not being capable of doing things, but they at the same time they're telling you that no, you're not autistic, it's just an excuse, it's just an excuse. And then now that I'm diagnosed, oh, but it's you're not that autistic, you seem too intelligent, you seem to it's like you can't win with these people, you can't catch a break. First, oh no, you're not autistic. And now, oh, you're just a little bit autistic. You're not. Suck it up. You can do it. You're not high needs, whatever that means. The only reason I'm considered level 1 autistic is because I was diagnosed with Asperger's as a kid. And so my needs are assessed based on my original diagnosis and not on my current needs because I am a burnout and my autistic needs as a burnout autistic person are higher than the needs of a normal autistic person. So they cannot assess me based on my current needs. So they used my previous diagnosis. Uh, but yeah, I mean, what is level 1, level 2 in the scheme of things? Someone who is level 1 today could be level 3 tomorrow, and someone who is level 3 now could be level 1 tomorrow. I mean, it's subjective, and I don't know. At least this diagnosis somehow protects me from going through what I went in the past. I need to heal, I need to recover from the trauma, I need to fight the burnout somehow. And so the first step is unmasking, getting to know and accept my autistic traits. In even though my family and people around are still trying to suppress my autistic traits, I need to fight uh, to be more autistic because uh, suppressing my autistic traits is causing me the burnout. So I need to allow myself to be myself. And if people can't accept you for who you are, do they really love you? Um, for my mental health, I need to allow myself to be autistic. And it's not easy when everyone else is telling you to suppress your autistic traits, to stop stimming, to suck it up, to force yourself to do things you don't want to do, to push yourself to your limits beyond your breaking point. You need to learn how to say no. And yes, you may seem a social, you may seem antisocial, but you have your needs. You need your space. You need to recharge. And it's either you work with your needs or you get to a point when you lose your autonomy and become a prisoner again, and that is not an option. So for now, I am learning how to be myself. Like, I know how to be myself, but what I mean is let loose, not control my gestures so much, not control how I talk, not control how I feel. Like, just unleash whatever I am and not let people tell me what I should be and what I should do. I mean, I'm an adult. I am self sufficient, and the only moments people help is when they want to tell me what to do. When I ask for help, they don't help, or if they do, they help the way they think I need help and not the way I actually need help. So that doesn't work because I know my needs better than anyone else. And so far, my family, even my brother, they want to tell me how to live, and they think they're supporting me, but actually they're making things harder. And it's really hard that I don't talk to them for months and weeks at a time. But if you're not helping me and respect my boundaries, I need space. And it's not that I don't like them, it's just it's too exhausting to explain to them what I need and what I don't need. And if you can't accept me for who I am, I'll have to pass interacting with them. I know, and I know it might seem cruel and ungrateful, but I need to think about myself. And even though they might be well meaning, the consequences of the way they treat me and talk to me are very harmful. And so I need to start saying no. And yeah, I need to speak up for myself and start saying no. And yeah, don't let people gaslight you. Uh, you are valid, your feelings are valid, your needs are valid, and you know better than anyone what you need. And the proof is the help people tried to give only pushed you to burnout. Um, you don't want to burn out because you will lose your autonomy or partially lose your autonomy, and that's not a good thing. They will use it to control you more and more. So the best way is adopt boundaries. You deserve your space, you deserve to be yourself. And if you don't adopt boundaries, you will be prone to be gaslit, to be abused. There's the thing that is fawning, where you try to please everyone. But first and foremost, you need to put yourself first and your needs before you can be there for other people. And I think most of us are told our entire lives that we are wrong, we're defective, what we're doing is wrong, that we end up letting everyone step on us. And it's not okay. It's really hard to learn how to create boundaries, but those are essential for you to heal and recover. And so I'm still learning how to heal from a burnout. I mean, I've been in burnout for over a decade, almost 15 years. So, and I had smaller burnouts through the years. Um, so now I just need to learn how not to be in burnout. And part of it includes boundaries. And if people don't listen to you, they talk over you and for you, they are not there to help you. They are there to impose their opinions on you, despite the fact that they are not listening to your needs. So you need to be able to say no. And Athena, she almost fell again. She's so adorable. So thank you for listening. And I know it's I'm all over the place, but yeah, I think I just needed to talk a little bit. And thank you for being here. And now, if you can see her, I think you can see a cat. She's so adorable. So bye. I see you next time.